It's that time of the year when I forget what day it is, but a number I haven't forgotten is 12. It's now 12 unbeaten for United, but should it have been an extra 2 points on Boxing Day, or were we lucky to see out a draw? Hello, and a very warm welcome to Under the Abbey Stand. I'm Jordan Warland. Neil Harris versus Gareth Ainsworth wasn't going to be pretty, but let's hope this pod is. Joining me, a man who refused to go to Gillingham with me on Boxing Day, despite me asking several times. Do you feel you made the right decision, Tom Walker?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I do, mate. Really. An absolute hangover, an absolute hangover of a football match. Very fitting. But yeah, managed to get down to the Fen Classico. Town Rangers taking on Ely City, which was great, to be honest. A disappointing loss for the Reds, but
it can't have been that great. Can't have been that great if you lost.
Nah, well, yeah, but look, it's all about coming together at this time of year, Jordan. There was over 1,000 people watching whatever level of football that is. I thought that was great. And yeah, you can have a pint on the pitch, not on the pitch, by the side of the pitch. That would have been quite frowned on, I think. But yeah, no, yeah. Glad I didn't go. I still managed to take it all in. And quick trip from Solheim to Hamburg. Actually, no, it doesn't need to be, does it? Because it wasn't.
No, it's Sky Sports Plus, mate.
No, that's right. I didn't go to Hamburg this time. I watched it at home. But yeah, managed to watch it, saw all of it, saw the whole darn thing, and yeah, on we go.
I watched it as a family get together, and basically the house was split. There was those in the sort of kitchen diner playing board games, and then those of us in the living room watching it on Sky Sports Plus, not in Hamburg.
What was the split like, Jordan? If you don't mind me asking, was it by any chance one person sitting watching in Sky Sports Plus and everyone else sitting playing Scrabble?
It was it was me and my nan, who can't move, so she had no other choice but to sit there with me. No, there was a couple of others in the room.
Cruel.
There was a couple of others in the room there with me, but the vast majority were in the other room playing the board games. But my cousin was sat watching it with me, and he said, one of you guys on the pod said a team full of Mamadou Jobs would be brilliant, and I think that's right. So yeah, shout out to Caspel. He's got some family backing on that point there. It was a pretty cold afternoon in Kent, Tom. So we warm up with some hot takes from your good self about Boxing Day. Are you happy or are you annoyed at the result?
I'm quite frustrated, to be honest. Well, it depends how you look at it. I think in terms of getting a result from the performance I think we put in and particularly ended the game with, I'm pretty quietly happy that we managed to scramble a point out of it, because it's very much, if you can't win it, make sure you don't lose it. And we did that, so that's good. The performance, I thought, left a lot to be desired. I think first half we were okay, like decent enough, without being brilliant. We were the better side in the first half, definitely, but I think it was more because Gillingham were poor, more so than what we were doing. I thought we did a lot of the basics quite well in the first half, and not tons more than that. And we managed to get into a couple of opportunities where 1-0 could have become 2 and maybe 3-0, but didn't quite have quite the right level of. We weren't clinical enough, to sort of turn a half chance into a second goal. If it was a second goal going into the break, I think you'd probably be fairly confident, but the second half, I thought was dreadful, to be honest.
I love watching the game when you're watching on TV, because you're more active on the old WhatsApp, and the drop off in your messages in the second half was great. First half there was talk of top 3. Second half, not so much.
Yeah, it's a bit of a pendulum, I'll give you that. At one point I texted another mate who's not a Kerry fan saying, God, I can't wait for us to win the league. I also texted someone else saying, God, Crew away is giving me a giddy feeling inside last game of the season. Spoke too soon, Jordan, I'll be honest with you, because I thought the second half was poor, like really poor. I know Harris has tried to dress it up a little bit in his post-match and said it's a point gained and all that sort of stuff. I think it's a point gained in the context that you put in a bit of a stinker of a second half showing. Which is what I thought it was. So it was sluggish. Thought there was nothing stuck going forward. We were sloppy at the back. We were poor in possession. There was no real creativity. Thought the changes that the manager made were poor, ineffective. Waited way too long to make one pretty obvious change up top. But yeah, we come out of it with a point, and lesser teams than us probably fold under the heavy weight of, of Gareth Ainsworth ball. And you
Well,
know,
I was going to ask that. I was going to ask that. Like, is there any part of you that agrees that it was a point gained? And I was thinking of just how direct Gillingham went and the amount of sort of crosses and balls into the box second half, and for the most part, dealt with it pretty well. Obviously, we'll talk about the goal later. That's the example of not dealing with it well. But I don't know. Do you think it was a good sort of defensive performance for the most part? Is there things there to be encouraged about?
I think that there has to be something in that because we didn't lose the game, and it reminds me a little bit of the conversations we were having post Salford away. I think it was where like we came out of that with a 0-0 draw, and yet we're all quite negative, really, as we sometimes are prone to being. But like we're all a little bit like, is that it? Is that like really like the kind of limit of our expectation? And yeah, like, I think Harris made some valid points on his post match interview about the way that we stood up to pressure, and that's true, and we did sort of, we obviously conceded the goal from a set piece, which is really disappointing. But in the main, like we do stand up to what is a pretty physical challenge, and that's good. That's credit to us for that. But I think that's a pretty minimal expectation, really, if I'm not being too harsh. I think the way the first half went and the drop off to the second half tells me that we could have done a lot more to impact that game. And whereas I think Harris is looking at it, is it a point gained or is it not a point gained? I'm kind of looking at it where it's actually probably 2 dropped more than anything, because Gillingham were there to be got at. I think if you look at a lot of what their fans are saying and how their fans are reviewing their own performance, they're like, we're kind of miles off it here. I think they brought on Bradley Dack, who made a bit of a change and obviously raised their level a little bit. But yeah, I think I guess as with a lot of these things, it will kind of be judged in the context of how the next couple of games go more than anything. And I'm looking ahead to Chesterfield, who seem to have hit a bit of form, ironically, since nabbing a last-minute point off us.
Yeah, we're their catalyst. Yeah, they'll thank us when they get promoted.
Yeah, that's a proper bingo card thing, that, isn't it? That's a classic. And also then Walsall, who I think are currently still top of the league. So we have a couple of really tough games coming up. And I think if you want to take it in chunks, you want to take it in blocks, like we were speaking about at the start of the month, or maybe post MK, I think it was, you're like, Accrington's got to be your win, definitely. And then probably you're going to have to win one of Gillingham and Chesterfield. Otherwise, Walsall looks like a massive game, and it's top of the league. So you look at all things considered, and you think Gillingham's the game that you probably want to win out of that, because it's eminently the most winnable one, and we've not done that. So that's frustrating. But yeah, I mean, like there's obviously some truth in the fact that like we did stand up to a lot of pressure. We were fairly resilient, but I can't help but be tinged by disappointment of the fact that we've gone ahead, not really made the most of it, and then been well off the level that we've managed to hit fairly consistently in the last few weeks, really.
Well, why do you think that is? So, first half, we could have been a couple up. We had some good sort of opportunities getting into the box. Didn't fall to the right players, in my opinion. But then, like you say, there's been this big drop off second half. And I don't know, like, how and why do you think that has happened? Like, do you think that's a Gillingham thing? Do you think it's them coming out second half, attacking their sort of their cop end, maybe having a bit of a speaking to from Ainsworth, maybe they changed a few things, or do you think it's on us for not responding or not having the right mindset in that second half to deal with it?
I mean, obviously, like it kind of has to be a bit of both. I think to give credit to Gillingham, like they did up their game a bit, and they did make it more difficult for us, because I think more than anything, I think first half they were very, very easy for us to play against. I guess if you're kind of looking at it that way, the second half they weren't easy to play against. I don't think they were, cutting us apart at will, but they were certainly putting a lot of balls in the box and getting it forward quickly, which is kind of what you expect from a Gareth Ainsworth side. So there's definitely a bit of that, and definitely a bit of credit to them for that, because I guess from their perspective, they've taken a point from a game that at half time looked like it was probably going only really one way. I guess from our perspective, I think there's a few things, and the elephant in the room is obviously fatigue, because we've only played 4 or 5 days ago. I know Gillingham have as well, but still, like it's a busy period this time of the year. We've had cup games that went to extra time, and we've had big challenges in Chesterfield. It took us right to the end, and MK Dons are obviously one of the better sides in the division and stuff. So you can imagine there's a bit of tiredness in the legs, and things like injuries, I guess, have started to take their toll a little bit. over the last week or two. Like centre mid's a great example, like with bare bones in there. Obviously, one or two coming back, hopefully, but it's still a pretty limited roster, I suppose, we've got to pick from. I think for me, individual performances comes into it as well. I thought Apare obviously greatly gets his goal, his first one for ages, by the way. But gets his goal, takes it well in the right place at the right time, all of that. So that's good. But I thought second half he was a passenger. He's a total passenger, and he plays such an important role in the team that if he plays it really well, it can be such a bonus. But if he goes missing like that, we've just got nothing up front. And I think that was where the real difference was really between first half and second half, was that when the ball went when we got the ball forward in the first half, not every time, but a decent amount of time, one way or another, it kind of stuck a little bit. Second half, there was none of it. Every time the ball went forward, it came straight back. And so part of it is obviously Gillingham using that and getting the ball at us and putting it in our box. But the flip side of it is that when we had the ball, we didn't retain possession well enough. We weren't able to make things stick up top. And if you're an away side trying to defend the lead, the last thing that you want is the ball being pumped into your box 40 or 50 times in a game, which I think is what Neil Harris said it was. So yeah, that was where I was at for me, and I think that was the most frustrating thing, was that. And look, again, I've just spoken about tired legs, right? So I don't want to be a total hypocrite here, but I'm looking at the way the game went, and the change I thought was crying out for was bringing either someone on to play with Apare to give him a bit of help, or someone to come on instead of Apare. And we did neither of those things until 1-1. And I think it was at the 80th minute when Apare finally makes way. And it's not all his fault. Obviously, he's not the only one. And we did make one or two other changes which were questionable. But I think for me that's where the game swung, and it's quite a simple, I guess, basic analysis of it. But in the first half, things stuck, and in the second half, they didn't. And the sort of impact of that is that we face a lot more pressure in the second half, and eventually pressure tells, right?
We'll touch on Apare and the substitutions a little bit later in the pod. I want to get your thoughts on Bennett and Brophy coming off. But you mentioned the word fatigue a second ago, and I just wondered if you thought that was a reason for what Harris called out post-game that he was really disappointed with, was the game management. And he talked about, switching off at restarts, giving the ball away, putting the ball out of play too often. The one that he mentioned that really resonated with me was offsides, but also just like really silly offsides. Like, I can't remember who it was, possibly Kachunga, apologies if it wasn't, second half, where we get a free kick in like a good sort of position towards like, sort of middle of our halfway line, and he gets caught offside there. It was just ridiculous. Do you think that's a fatigue thing, or do you think that's maybe like a discipline thing? What's your take on the game management?
It's probably a bit of reverting to the mean, I suppose, because I think probably one of the most frustrating things about the way the game played out against Gillingham was that a lot of the reasons that we found ourselves in that position and ended up dropping points for winning position, and the reason that it feels a bit disappointing is because these are things that we've just not seen really in the last sort of month, 6 weeks, maybe even a little bit more. And then you see like all these like errors like starting to come back into our game. The offside one that I think I messaged you guys about at the time. I was just like, that's just sloppy. That's just poor. Like you're right. It was a free kick, like totally no pressure. And I think it might have been like the first phase from it. It wasn't like it'd been passed on and headed on and flicked on and stuff. I think it was literally from the free kick. And you're like, just do better there. Like, it's poor. And then that we couldn't retain possession well enough. We weren't using the ball well enough. And I think that just comes from probably a player like Hoddle, for example, who is experienced and is going to have these games where he can't be totally 10 out of 10 all the time. I think he's played well for the most part and he's been in that role, and he's had to play probably more football this season than he was expecting to, so I don't want to dig him out too much. I thought he had a bit of an off afternoon, and probably for Pelly Ruddock as well in the middle of the park. I'm looking at him and thinking maybe can you do a bit better there as well. Don't think it was like a totally disastrous afternoon for either of them, but if you're looking at using the ball and retaining the ball and just being a little bit smarter and a bit cuter with things, then probably they're the ones that you want ticking things over a little bit better and a little bit more smartly. And I thought, the other thing, which I know you mentioned we'll speak about, I think is just the fact that we lost two players. Well, I say lost. We
subbed off. Yeah,
two players who are basically arguably our best players at at moving the ball forward and keeping the ball and just getting us up the pitch basically, and Bennett and Brophy. And these things all combined probably pretty clearly explain why there was a bit of a drop off in our performance level, and why we couldn't make things happen basically in the same way that we were doing in the first half.
I think I've got an idea for another reason for the drop off. You mentioned something that we've not seen, and I think it falls into that category. I think we were bullied a bit on Boxing Day. Like, it was to be expected from an Ainsworth team, but I can't remember the name of their striker, their number 9, but big guy. You know, things weren't sticking to Habre. Lots of stuff was sticking to him. He was really sort of bossing us at the back there. And I just wonder, sort of, I don't know, maybe there's a bit of a mental weakness on Boxing Day, that once you start to kind of get things not going your way and kind of sort of getting a little bit bullied by the other team having the ball a lot, and then moving it quickly and then putting it into the box and then being a bit bigger and a bit stronger than you, maybe that sort of, I don't know, brought in a little bit of the fear, and then just brought in these unforced errors, because super frustrated to see people come off the bench and not impact the game, and make sort of bad decisions. And you know, there was one where Kachunga was attacking late in the second half and he had a couple of passes on, and I think he just put it straight forward to the keeper. So
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, you had options left and right, and you ploughed it forward about 30 yards straight into the goalkeeper's arms. And you're like you're the experienced one. Like, you're the one that should know better. I mean, like, you know, it shouldn't all be negative. Like, I think there's a lot of things that Harris, even if like probably not publicly, like privately, he'll probably work on and have somewhere between a quiet word and a bit of hairdryer treatment for some things that happened, because I think there was a lot wrong with particularly second half performance. But if you tune in the middle of this and in the middle of the discussion we've had, you probably could be forgiven for thinking that we'd absolutely shit the bed and lost like 4-1 or something like that. And like we haven't done that. And to our credit, you know, as much as I think there's a lot of truth in what you say about maybe not quite coping with the physical challenge that Gillingham sort of pose, you know, you have to acknowledge that we've come out of that game with a point, and we've not lost the game, and we've not been beaten, and we're 12 unbeaten in all competitions now. So you know, we're looking at an away point at Gillingham, which, you know, all things considered, is probably not a bad thing, and being like loads of negatives, loads to work on. And that's kind of encouraging, I suppose, if you want to take a positive angle on it. But definitely areas for improvement.
I'd add to that as well the fact that Gillingham, they draw a lot of games. Like, they're a hard to beat team. I know they don't win a lot. They've not won at home, I think, for 3 months now, something like that. So yeah, they're a difficult team to beat. It is a frustration though to sort of get your noses in front and again not find that second goal that sees you over the line. One thing that I think is positive, I'd like your take on this, Tom, is the number of shots. Gillingham had 17. I believe we had 4, which I know this is going to sound a bit weird as spinning this as a positive, but, you know, to have 17 shots but only concede the 1, and, you know, 8 of those shots from outside the box, especially in the first half, I think that shows how well we were dealing with them, you know, forcing them to go from long range. This shot statistic, 17-4, did that sum the game up for you? Or I just found it sort of a fascinating number considering how on top we were first half.
Yeah, a little bit, but I think like a lot of the control that we had of the game was in that kind of second third. Really, I don't really think there was loads of it that was like well, certainly not really inside the box. I know there were a couple of times, I think one on the left and one on the right, where we managed to kind of get in behind a little bit, and arguably could do a little bit better to actually fashion an opportunity to have a shot on target, but we didn't, and that's kind of where I suppose we, you know, a big part reason why we ended up dropping the points. But yeah, I think it does kind of sum up the game. I think first half, like, I think they had quite a lot of shots, but I was quietly pretty happy with it all. Like, I think from the first half, they obviously have the disallowed goal, but other than that, the highlight, I think, is a corner, which almost goes in, and one shot from like 25 yards, which goes well wide of the post. And, you know, if you're Neil Harris and you're watching that, you're like, that's fine. That's absolutely okay. And that did, like, I know they put on a lot of pressure, and definitely I think a point is the right result in the end. And I'm not trying to sit here and say that they didn't deserve or didn't create anything, but there weren't loads of like clear-cut opportunities. It is one thing I'd say. And, you know, shots can be quite misleading. It's all about the quality of the shots, right? That's why stats like XG are, you know, so talked about and obviously so widely used within the game. And, you know, obviously their XG was higher, but I think than ours it was, sorry. But I think the the story that the shots stat, if you look at that in isolation, the story that sort of tries to paint is that it was an absolute battering, which it wasn't really. Like we didn't concede loads of chances. I mean, obviously the penalty plays a big part in the XG that they get, and obviously that's saved. And then the goal is essentially a free header from like 3 or 4 yards out, so that that accounts for a lot of it as well. But other than that, I think off the top of my head, I think Dak had one which was saved pretty well by Eastwood smartly down to his left, I think, which is a good strike on the volley that he manages to get down well too. But other than that, there wasn't tons, to be honest. So yeah, I mean,
Especially after they equalised as well. I thought we saw the game
yeah,
out pretty well.
it's a good. I think the difference in the amount of shots, I guess, is just a good succinct way of summing up the amount of pressure they're able to put onto us, particularly in the second half. And I guess the XG that comes from it is probably a good summary of all the fact that it's pressure without it being particularly threatening, I guess.
Momo, let's talk about some of the match action in more detail. I've made a late addition to the running order, so hopefully this doesn't throw you. I want to talk about two different back passes. That's right. I'm not starting with the early goal for Appere. I want to talk about the really early thigh pass and then the back pass that conceded the free kick to. Are you happy to see a thigh back pass was within the first, 60 seconds?
I was delighted, Jordan. It was a late Christmas present. I was well happy with that. It's amazing because like like normally it's the crowd, especially if you're playing away, that are like, that is quite simply a back pass. That is a disgrace, and it's just obviously not. But also the commentator didn't know either. He was like, "Surely that's a back pass. What's going on there?" But every single Cambridge fan that's either there watching it at the ground or watching it from home is going, "We've seen this one hundreds of times already." So yeah, good to see right at the start as well. It's like a proper late, like a little Christmas cracker.
But what annoys me, Tom, is that people are trying to get in on the old Kel Watts back pass and they're not reading the script. They're not doing it right. Was it Bennett that gave away the free kick? That was a worrying moment, right?
Yeah, it was. I understand totally why the ref gives it as a back pass, because it was more like, I think it was more like Bennett's reaction to what had happened than it was the actual action of him sort of touching the ball back towards Eastwood or something in Eastwood's direction. Because actually what I think is just a bad touch, and it just ends up like ricocheting off his boot about 10-15 yards forward, and ends up just being easy for the keeper to come and collect it. And I think but then after it kind of comes off Bennett's boot, he sort of gives like the all clear sort of sign to Eastwood, like, yeah, go on, like, that's yours. And that makes it look like he's passed it back intentionally, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's one of those where I guess if you put 100 people in a room, maybe some people would say it's about pass, some wouldn't, and it's not a clear cut thing. But I think from my perspective, that's what would tip it over the edge, I think, a little bit. But yeah, really frustrating, especially because like we get on a high horse about this stuff a lot as Cambridge fans with with all the Kel Watts thigh pass stuff. To actually, if we conceded from a back pass or a free kick resulting from a back pass, that would have been some humble pie needed to be consumed.
The messages that were coming through on WhatsApp from you guys when that incident happened made me think that we had conceded, because there was a lot of anger, there was a lot of disappointment. But that just goes to show what standards we have now for back passes.
Yeah, I mean, I've maintained throughout the season that we will concede at least one from a back pass, and I've said that consistently since the beginning. Maybe not since the beginning of the season, but certainly since this thigh pass stuff really took off. That wasn't how I envisaged it. To be fair, it should come directly from Kel Watts miscuing a thigh pass, I think, for me.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Let's get back to some more positive topics then, and not back pass related, but goal related. An early goal, good to settle the nerves. Nice to get an early goal away from home. Falls to Louis Appere. We touched on it a little bit earlier in the pod, but it's his first strike in 15 games, I believe. Happy with the goal, happy with the move, Tom?
yeah, very happy. Especially glad that it's Appere that scored it, because it's been a while. Mid-August, I think it was. So approaching 4.5 months since he's actually scored a goal for us. Which, given the amount of time that he's spent playing, and I appreciate there's been, a few weeks out injured, sort of within that period, but, for a lot of the season so far, he's been the main man, the sort of main number 9, and you need more than that, from your centre forward. So it's good that he scores the goal. It's good the way that it comes about as well, because it is, a classic kind of number nine's goal, isn't it? Like just in the right place at the right time, getting on the end of something, getting in front of his defender, and it's a really simple finish. But obviously you still have to be there. I think for this one, probably what really makes the goal is the header from Gibbons at the back post. And we talked after the Accrington game actually about how well he'd got forward during that game, and obviously he scores the opener there, and he has one or two other opportunities against Accrington, and there he is again, like at the back stick. I think it's kind of starts off with like a long punt forward, but he's in the right. Gibbons is kind of in the right place and does really well to get above his defender. I think is actually Max Clark. He beats in the end, puts it into a really dangerous area, and I guess with all the chat that we've had about strikers this season, it would have been quite typical if that header had gone into the box. There was nobody on the end of it, and we'd be sat here going, "God, if only Lavery was fit and available," and all that sort of stuff. But no, it's Apre on the end of it, and like you say, a really well timed goal, and sort of helped to settle the nerves. It definitely set the way for the first half at least, and a nice sort of a little bit scruffy, but well worked nonetheless.
It was great for him to finally score. Good to get that early goal. But I think the frustration for me is I just don't see Apre as a target man. I don't see the balls being hoofed up to him working. They never seem to stick. Accrington at home the other day wasn't sticking then. I feel like we need to be, I don't know, giving him something to run onto and balls to feet to get the best out of Apre. You touched on it earlier in the pod, but he obviously faded a lot second half. What was your take on his performance over the course of the 90 and the fact that he stayed on as long as he did?
I think first half was okay. Obviously gets his goal, and that's the main thing. And arguably as a centre forward, that's what he's on the pitch to do. So that's fine. But I think, a bit of a passenger for me in the second half, to be honest. Didn't impact the game enough, and part of this will be how are we playing to him, and part of it will be just sort of how was he playing. But I mean, there were times in the second half, whether it's through fitness or whatever, because I know he's probably still not quite 100% yet either, but there were times in that second half where the ball was being played forward and he wasn't even in shot, and again, like, it's just not really what you need when you're trying to hold out and you're trying to protect a lead away from home. You need the ball to be sticking because it helps you get up the pitch. And like I sort of mentioned earlier on in the pod, like, I think one of the main difficulties in the second half was that nothing stuck up front, and that's primarily because Apre wasn't quite making it work there. And obviously, again, part of that will be how we play into him, but he's just got to do a little bit more, I think. And you're right, he's probably not the target man. He's not like an Uche, where the ball's naturally going to stick to him, so you have to play the right way, and that's probably just down the channels and give him something to chase. And we didn't quite do that enough, really. A lot of it was too much like the boot was on the other foot. We were trying to play Gillingham's game, really, and clearly it's not what we were set up to do, and it's clearly not what Apre's in the team for, really. But it gets his goal, so you can't be too critical. But I just thought all round play just wasn't his afternoon.
He does the occupying defenders really well. He does sort of the muscling, the backing in, but it's the trapping of the ball, the sticking of the ball that doesn't seem to be working for him currently. We can't end the Apre chat, Tom, without jumping forward to early in the second half, and we'll loop back to some first half stuff in a moment. But Apre, big talking point early in the second half. Penalty for you, yes or no?
At the time, I thought no. At the time, I was like, ref will never give that. Ref just isn't giving that sort of thing for us the whole afternoon. But I watched it back a couple of times. I think it just sort of has to be a penalty, really.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. At the time, I thought it was a pen. Those in the WhatsApp group chat weren't having it, including Casper, who was there in the ground and said it was right in front of him. But he's got himself in front of the defender. He's got control of the ball. There's contact. Like Neil Harris said it after the game. If it happens anywhere else on the pitch, that's a foul. That's a free kick. It's similar, not as blatant as the one that we conceded, which we'll touch on in a moment. But yeah, definite pen for me, mate.
My critique of him there, really, if I'm being harsh, is that he's not scored. To be honest, like that he's not just like.
Yeah, it was weird, wasn't it? Why is he slowed down and not got a shot away?
Yeah, like I just wonder, like, can he do more just to put the ball in the back of the net? But he's been impeded. Like it's pretty obvious. And and you only need to watch it back like once or twice to be like, well, it's one of those because there wasn't like a massive appeal really. I think they said it was a faint appeal from the away end on the commentary during the game, but like it's one way like I must be missing something here. Like I must have missed something that means it's not a penalty, but no, I don't think we have. I think it's just a poor decision from the ref. Not the only one all afternoon, it has to be said. But yeah, for me, a penalty, Clive.
And such a key moment in the game as well. 1-0 up pretty early in the second half. You score that. I know it's not as easy as saying you go 2-0 up, you win that game, but I definitely feel like we would have left with 3 points given how we played for the rest of the game. Just jumping back to the first half, plenty of sort of box entries I felt for us. A lot of good opportunities that seemed to fall for Liam Bennett. Obviously, the praise is there for the positioning and getting into the box, but it was just a little bit frustrating, wasn't it? That it was Brophy and Bennett getting the ball there where you're crying out for them to maybe, like, I don't know, find an Apare or someone like that, someone a bit more of a finisher within, inside the 18-yard box to get that second goal.
Yeah, well, it's the one where the keeper gets rounded. Like I'm just thinking, again, like I mentioned it literally just a minute ago, but if that's Lavery, like he's just finishing that. He's just making sure that ball squeezes into the bottom corner somehow. And again, like you find yourself 2-0 up, and it's like, you can't really see us conceding two at all, really. Let alone against a Gillingham team who are struggling to put anything together, really. So yeah, that was a bit frustrating. The second one, it just felt like a bit of indecision almost. I think can Bennett maybe do a bit better, probably. But yeah, like these are the ones that are just sort of half chance. And you look back on, and you think, if we just had a bit more quality at the top end of the pitch, at the sharp end of the pitch, which I know it must bore people to tears just like listening to us because it comes up in every single pod. And I appreciate it's boring, but the point just comes up time and time and time again. But like, I think against Gillingham, it's just a classic example of like, if you had players available to you with the ability of like MK Dons and their squad, you're 2-3 up at half time and the game's out of sight. But we don't, so we weren't. And we're sitting there talking about 1-1 draw.
Well, the two lads that we just mentioned there that were instrumental, I think, in the first half for sort of getting us into good areas, getting the ball into the box, Bennett and Brophy, came off second half, Tom. We've sort of already covered this a little bit, but what are your thoughts on this one? And I'm assuming you were surprised to see that substitution happen. Do you think he's thinking ahead to Monday night, to the Chesterfield away game? What do you reckon the rationale was there for bringing them both off at the same time in the same sub?
Well, I mean, I hope not, because like my thought on this is always the same, because I know that this sort of question mark always comes up every time Christmas period comes around, because like the games do famously come thick and fast this time of the year. And there's always a bit of chat like towards the end of games, you're thinking about the next ones, you think about the next one. Like, no, like just go, like focus on the game in front of you. It's much more valuable just to make sure you get 3 points out of this one. And I do think that he made the wrong changes there. I think you could take one off, maybe one of Brophy or Bennett. But what we actually did for me was we basically just took away or removed anyone from the team who can actually get the ball up the pitch. And at that point, you are literally just playing it forward almost aimlessly.
Especially because Kai was having such a quiet game on the opposite side.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know exactly what the thinking there was, but, as with so many things, when we're talking about managerial decision-making, whether it's tactics, shape, personnel, substitutions, whatever it is, you're always going to be judged on results. And unfortunately, it made us a lot worse. And, you can look at it in the cold light of day and you can be like, well, actually taking our 2 ball carriers, I suppose, off the pitch, that was always going to happen. And that's exactly what happened. So yeah, really frustrating one for me. Not the first time that we've maybe not, like sometimes I do think with Harris and recently there's been a lot more examples of him making changes that have made us better rather than worse. So that's fine, and that's absolutely right. But there are some times where I think whether we're chasing a goal or protecting a lead, we make odd changes that don't make us better. And this was one of them for me.
Went too defensive too early, didn't he? This is going to age terribly, Tom, but at the time, I did think putting Perrington on was a good idea. So with that in mind, let's now move on to discuss the Gillingham equaliser. I thought it was a good move, a little bit more solid at the back, a little bit sort of more presence as they're coming more direct at us. A lot to discuss in the Gillingham goal. Let's start with the penalty itself. It was a pretty shit one to concede, wasn't it? Slow to react to a quick free kick. Really, really avoidable, but definite pen.
Yeah, so unlike us as well this season. Just to be that switched off, that sleep from a set piece. Um, you almost like deserve the penalty being given just for that. And ultimately, I think it's Hoddle, isn't it? It brings him down,
Yeah.
brings the Gillingham player down. But he's got like no choice because the other option is just let him have like a free shot on goal. Like you've got to try and intervene somehow. And obviously he's done that, and the result is obviously a penalty. Like it's clearly a penalty. There's no complaints there, other than the fact that maybe we could have had one at the other end. But taking the decision in isolation, like it's pretty obvious. And then, yeah, I mean, there's no way of saying it. I think Harris mentioned it in his post match as well. Like we just not defended a set play well enough, and that's
Yeah.
it. And that's what wins in the penalty basically.
And then we go 0-0 for Eastwood. The penalty itself, it's one that's for me, Tom. It's one that's a great save. It's not like a poor hit or a badly taken penalty. Eastwood correctly goes the right way, makes himself big, gets right across the goal. I think it's a terrific save. Start with that positive.
Yeah, I guess the only thing you'd say, is it's a relatively nice height for a keeper to save. It's not like bottom corner or top corner. It's somewhere sort of in the middle, but it is right in the corner.
Yeah.
Sorry, right. If it went in, it would have hit the side netting, I think, first before the back of the net, if that makes sense. It's a really good save. Yeah, really good. Obviously got a bit unlucky with one at Grimsby, I think, as well. So he's making a bit of a habit of that, which is good to see. We don't tend to give too many away, which is obviously another nice trait. But yeah, he did so well. I would love to sit here and talk about him more.
And that's where it ends. Yeah. What happens? What happens here? Like, obviously, Pelly Ruddock gives it to the big stand behind the goal, which is a terrific video on X. If you've not seen it, go find it. But we're normally, you mentioned this a second ago about like how the conceding of the penalty was so unlike us. The defending of the set piece was so unlike us. I know there's maybe an element there of saying, okay, we've sort of been caught out by Eastwood making the wrong decision and getting nowhere near the ball. But even if he misses that, you would expect us to be so much more organised and cover for that mistake. Yeah, what's your take? What's your take on the goal itself, then, Tom? The corner coming in, Eastwood's involvement, and others, if you want to expand on that as well.
Yeah, I'll focus on Eastwood, and then you can come in for the others that need coming in for. I think. Do you know what? I'll start with the reaction to the penalty save, because every time a goalkeeper saves a penalty, it always happens, and I don't know why. It's one of my little pet peeves of football. When a goalkeeper saves a penalty, they never celebrate. They always do this sort of like, gesturing, like get in position, get back in position, because inevitably the ball's either been played out into play or out for a corner. So like, get organised, go again, calm down. And I always think it's just for show. And it's just like they just do it because they think that that's what they need to be seen to be doing, rather than actually say, oh, I've saved a penalty, that's good, I'll celebrate. And it was like so clear here that he just totally lost his mind for a minute, Eastwood, because he comes charging out for the ball. And I get what you're saying about organisation, but it's got to start with your goalkeeper, right? And when they come rushing off their line into no man's land and make a total hash of going for it, like he's not even near the ball. Like it isn't like he's just like flapped at it and sort of got like a little touch on it, but not enough, and he's punished for that. It's like he's come out, he's nowhere to be seen, and he's got absolutely nowhere near even getting anything on the ball. So, like for me, like that's as simple as it is. It's a goalkeeper error that's led to a goal. I know there's another part in it which I'm sure you'll talk about, and Caspel's urged us to speak about, but I think the headline of it is, as you say, 0-0. Great penalty save, one second, and headless chicken the next.
Yeah, you mentioned it. We had a question from Matt Caspel of this parish. Well, not even a question. It was a statement, a demand. Make sure you body Perrington for his role in the goal. What are your thoughts on this one, Tom? I get where Caspel's coming from. He's, as a defender, you should be anticipating that ball coming towards you. You should be planning for the worst. You should be thinking, if the keeper doesn't get this, I'm behind him. What am I doing here? How am I sorting it out? So to lose your man and allow someone, and I say this as someone that's not particularly tall myself, a shorter person to get a free head on goal, it's not great. It's not great for viewing.
No, it's not ideal. And I mean, look, I think the way that we concede the way that we concede the equaliser and straight from a corner is as you say, like it's very un-Cambridge United this season. Really, it is. But yeah, like you're right. I think from Purrington's perspective, it's maybe not as Ben Purrington as it is on Cambridge United. 'Cause I think he's been probably one of the summer signings that's, well, jury's out, should we say? But yeah, he just like loses his man. Just loses his man. Doesn't do well enough to track him, and it is the simplest of headers for Clark, isn't it? Because he's not been put under enough pressure by his man. He's also like all over Clark. If you look at the run that Clark makes from the sort of bit between the penalty spot and the edge of the box, Purrington's like got his arms like all around his shirt and all around his like neck at points, and yeah, just doesn't fill me with confidence. That, but yeah, just basically not done anywhere near enough. Is frankly it. I will say that there's a world in which Eastwood comes out and claims the ball better, and it's a footnote. Like you wouldn't even think back on it. We're not in that world, unfortunately. But yeah, I think Purrington's not covered himself in glory either. But yeah, it's a horror show of a goal to concede, particularly after the high, I guess, of saving the penalty. And at that point, you think like, right, we're on the way to 3 points here. We've escaped it. Yeah, as a corner, like we're generally speaking pretty good at defending those. So, but yeah, we'll have to see.
Well, we have a chance to make it right Monday night. A difficult away trip up to Chesterfield. Before Tom and I give you our opinions on that, we caught up with Dave, who is a Chesterfield fan. Right then, news fans, time to find out a little bit more about our next opponents. We're off to play Chesterfield, making a pretty quick return to the pod. We say welcome once again to Dave. Dave, thanks for joining us, mate.
Hello, thanks for having me. I can't have been too bad last time. I'm back again.
Bit of an odd one playing the same team so quickly. It seems a bit strange, but a lot's happened since we've last played each other, especially on your side. 3 wins on the bounce. How are things at Chesterfield? How's everyone feeling at the moment? Must be feeling pretty confident, feeling good after those 3 wins and up into the playoff spots now.
Yeah, it's been an odd season, hasn't it? I think for most teams. I think I remember last time I was kind of on the pod and we were talking about how there's probably a dozen teams that are kind of thinking, oh, actually, we should have picked up 3 there and we should have picked up a point there, and everyone kind of thinks they should be in the picture, whether that's automatic or playoffs. I think that probably counts for a lot of teams in the top half of the league, and we kind of all season have felt that we've not really seen the best of the team, whether it's new signings haven't quite gelled or a few key injuries in places or a bit of bad form from some players, and we kind of not felt like we've seen a good 90-minute performance all season. And then we obviously rescued a point when we shouldn't have got one against you last time out. And then since then, it seems to have just got a bit better. We had a good 3-1 home win against Barnet, which we had a good 45 minutes, and then they spurned a few chances to get back into it. And then we had a good kind of resilient away win. And then we've backed that up with a Notts County win at home. So and at the weekend, was it the weekend? No, on the Boxing Day.
Boxing
whatever
Day.
day
What was
it was.
that? Friday, Saturday? God knows. Yeah.
It felt like it was our first really good 90-minute performance all season. So I think you are probably getting us a bit of time of confidence. It kind of just happened like it does with a lot of teams. We had 2 key injuries in that Armando Dobra, who is our kind of centre attacking midfielder, sometimes plays on the left, did his hamstring and is out until mid-Jan. And then Dylan Markande, who was our right winger, who was a key player for us, also did his hamstring and is out till mid-Jan. So it meant that kind of the backup wingers, Dylan Duffy, Liam Mandeville, have ended up playing, and actually they're more providers than scorers. So it's really played into hand of Lee Bonus up front, who has then scored 6 in his last 6, I think 8 in his last 10 games. So sometimes you get those enforced changes, don't you, that can actually play into your favour a bit. You have to play a certain starting 11, and it kind of gels them together and they get the wins.
Yeah, I was going to ask Dave, like, what's been the reason for these back to back wins? Anything different? They tried anything in terms of formation or players? Anyone come back from injury? Any sort of reasons you can think of as to the pickup in form?
I think for us, it would a pretty key one would be Ryan Stirk coming back fit into the team. He had a good couple of months out. He's kind of centre midfielder. We signed him from Walsall in the summer, so he's your tackling defensive midfielder, I guess. And he was really good for us as he started off, and was just the player that we were missing last season when we lost to Walsall in the playoffs. So he was then out injured and came back, and it just solidifies the team a bit more. Paul Cook often talks about that he plays a 4-2-3-1. He never switches from a 4-2-3-1. He's been doing it his whole career. But he relies on the two centre-backs and the two centre midfielders being a box, and everyone else attacks. So he defends with the goalkeeper and that middle four, attacks with everyone else. And we were kind of muddling along with the central midfield too because of injuries and what have you, not quite working. And now we've got Ryan Stirk, Tom Naylor in that midfield too, and it just makes the centre backs look a lot better. To be honest, because they've been making quite a few mistakes. So I think that we've only let in, I think, one goal, I think, in the last 3 games, something like that. And we did have the 5th worst defence in the league, I think, up to about half a dozen games ago. So that's definitely been the change, because now your attackers don't have to score 3-4 goals to win a game. They only have to score 1 or 2, which obviously makes a big difference for any team, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And it's the kind of league where you put together a bit of a run and you do shoot up. So you find yourselves in that last playoff spot as we speak. Is that kind of sort of picked up any sort of morale amongst the fan base? Like I think you were saying before when you came on the pod that you were hoping to be in the promotion picture. Does it feel like these last 3 results and where you now are in the league table is kind of making everyone feel a bit more confident about your outlook for the second half of the season?
Yeah, I think so. And I think for us, it was I think I said last time, it was like the tough second album of a band, in that, you've got all your hits in your bag and you bust them out on your first album, then you don't quite know where you go after that. And it was a bit like us after we got promoted back to League Two. We had a lot of the old guard that got us back to League Two, managed to get us in the playoffs. A few of those have now naturally moved on, like they do from any campaign, and a bit of a transition. New players came in, and the new players didn't quite hit the ground running. And, it's like in any walk of life, isn't it? No one would be expected to get into a new job and be their best they've ever performed in their career. It takes time, but football fans are really impatient, aren't they? So we had like Lee Bonis, who is kind of a striker that started off in Northern Ireland, went to ADO Den Haag in the Dutch second division, scored a few goals there, and we signed him, and he only scored 1 goal in his first 16 games or something, and everyone's going, "Oh, this guy's rubbish, send him back, he's terrible, he can't hit a barn door," and all this lot. And then suddenly he scored 8 goals in 10 games because he's just found a bit of, they played him through that rough patch, he's hit the form. And we've had the same with like Zach Hemming in goal. He's now become he's our best goalkeeper that we've had for years. So it feels like the new signings have now hit the ground running, and then when they do hit the ground running and they get their chance and stuff like that, like you do with players, then suddenly the link between the fans and supporters seems to knit together a bit, and then everyone feels a bit of a boost of that bond, and the fans are chanting before we're playing well, or the players are playing well before the fans are chanting, and it all just then goes on a few gears, doesn't it? And I think that's probably how we found ourselves. We kind of hoped and expected that we could be a top 3 team this season with the additions that we made. And Paul Cook, in all his time with Chesterfield in 2 spells, has never kind of finished outside the playoffs in a full season with Chesterfield. So he's very successful with us. So in a hopefully non-arrogant sounding way, we kind of hoped that we would be top 3 with the resources we've got. But it just took a while for it to blend. Yeah. And I think there'll probably still be 4 or 5 players that come in January and a few that go out to try and kick us up another gear. It's just probably one of those natural things. It's just a sign of fan impatience that you can't wait for the player to, coming to England for the first time after being in the Dutch second division and settle into a new house and find new friends. and perform well in his job at the same time.
So you would have told us this a few weeks ago, but I'll ask it again anyway. You mentioned a few players' names so far, but I'm just wondering, come Monday night, if you're a United fan, which name should you be looking out for on the Chesterton, not the Chesterton, no, the Chesterfield team sheet? Chesterton's a part of Cambridge, by the way, Dave, if you didn't know that. So that's something that I'm going to be ribbed for. Yeah, keeping a couple of names to keep an eye out on Monday night that might be sort of the main influencers there and inspire Chesterfield to win.
Yeah, well, certainly we have a very good attacking lineup. We score a lot of goals, which is nice, and they spread them out a bit. Liam Mandeville is very much our talisman of the team. He runs himself into the ground every match, has an engine that's incredible, does his attacking work, does his defensive work. He's been at the club 7 years, I think. Started off as a bit of a fringe attacking player that could never complete 90 minutes, never really complete 60. And then suddenly he's like become a key player. So I think there's players like Liam Mandeville and Tom Naylor that when they play well, the team plays well. I've just finished reading a book about scouting, and there's a whole chapter on there where they talk about the players that don't hit any of the stats, top tens, but when they play, teams win, and how teams try and find that player that is the anonymous one that makes a team tick. And Liam Mandeville, to be fair to him, does get goals and assists, but those players like Tom Naylor are the ones that, when they play well, the team ticks. So you may not notice them, but if they play well, that'll help us. In terms of attacking wise, yeah, Lee Bonis would be the guy to look out for. He's very much your box striker, a plays for tap-ins, and he works himself into the ground really well. And interestingly, the odd selection that you'll have on Monday is that Jamie Grimes has come back into central defence because Shay Dunkley has got injured and is out for a few months. And Jamie Grimes brought us all the way up from the non-league back into the league, centre-half, and has not featured at all this season. I think this was probably his second league start of the season or something like that, and he was kind of man of the match at the weekend. And he said that he never thought he'd play for Chesterfield again in front of a home crowd, which was quite a nice moment at the weekend. So we have got kind of threats all over, I guess, but it feels like our bench options are a little more limited since a few key players got injured. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Our strengths are definitely up front. Our weaknesses are certainly in defence. That seems the way it is. And
how do you see the game going? How do you see it panning out? And are you going to be brave and give us a score prediction?
Yeah, well, I was very impressed with Cambridge last time out. I thought as you'd expect with like a Neil Harris side, very well organised. Everyone knows what they're doing. They're all working hard, and they get to second balls. And like, I think I remember saying after the game last time, if you just stick like a Michael Cheek or someone like that in that team, then you're a top 7 team straight away. It's just finding that missing cog like most teams are going to try and find in January. So I expect it to be one of our most difficult home games, because the teams that generally come and attack us like Barnet did, and teams like that, it helps us out a bit because we can attack them back. If teams try and frustrate us, and the goalkeeper sits down, if the goalkeeper sits down after 20 minutes for a tactical moment, or if you try and disrupt the flow of play and things like that, I think you can be really successful against us. But I also think you've got quality around the team that can hurt us as well. And obviously results, you kind of keep an eye on results of teams, don't you, when you've played them in recent times and things like that. So I think it'll be a really difficult game, but I think we're in good form, and I feel like we can edge it. But it's going to be more of a 1-0 or a 2-1, I think, than a high scoring game this I was going to say this weekend.
Dave, I keep wanting to say Tuesday night every time.
Monday night.
I keep going to say the date. It's a Monday, yeah. Final question. Cambridge fans going up to this one. Any recommendations on where to get a lovely pint before the game?
Oh, well, this nice. Just if you go towards the ground, because obviously it's a bit of a walk from the town centre. It's not too bad if you're coming up on the train. It's kind of a straight walk. But once you get around the ground, there's quite a few places around there. We do have a little fan zone that's open in the car park, so you can get a drink there. That's kind of started by the the VK vodka kit guy is from Chesterfield, so it's kind of started by them. There's also Batch House opposite the ground, directly opposite the ground, where you can get some nice food and drink as well. And there's a few kind of real ale pubs down on that main road near Chesterfield as well. There's also a massive Tesco's right next to the ground that has a Greggs in it and a Subway in it and all that kind of stuff. So if you're straight off the train or off the coach and you feel like you need a sausage roll in your pocket for half time, then get yourself to the other side of the big Tesco car park right next to the ground, and you can load up on much cheaper friends in your pocket than you will get under the stands.
Surely your club won't be thanking you for encouraging people to sneak their own food in. But yeah, love it. Good tips.
It's amazing. It took us like, how long have we been in that ground? 15 years, something like that. We've only just introduced chips. And every year when you have those fans forum events and everyone goes, when are you going to get chips in the concourse? And they've just now, they spent 10 years going, I'm sorry that we didn't put the ventilation in the ground when we built it to be able to make chips and all this lot. And then suddenly they've managed to be able to make chips. So that shows how simple the folk of Chesterfield are, really. But I hope everyone has a good trip up to Chesterfield. It's a shame almost. I kind of felt like with these games, they could have stuck them they could have probably got away with a 3:00 for these. Like everyone could have taken annual leave and the kids could have had a nice day trip with them all being off school and stuff. I don't quite see the logic of making them all 7:45 on a Monday at Christmas. I'd say stick them on the Tuesday and make them 3:00 or something. But, it's a long way to travel, isn't it, otherwise?
Dave, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. All the best for the rest of the season. Nice one, Dave. Thank you very much for talking to me earlier. Good to get some insights from him. Interesting fan interview, that one, Tom. I referred to Chesterfield as Chesterton at one point. Both Dave and I completely forgot what day of the week it was and when the game was. We both desperately wanted to say things like Tuesday night and weekend's game. It's a real struggle. It's that time of year where it's all just a bit of a blur. But we got through. And the takeaway from me is Dave loves Cambridge United because we're their catalyst for some great form. They've won 3 on the trot since coming to the Abbey and getting that last minute equaliser. They're now up to 7th, that last playoff spot that was ours at one point, and a pretty impressive victory over Notts County last time out. Are you worried about their form, Tom?
Yeah, a little bit. But we've only got ourselves to blame, so such is life. Yeah, it's difficult.
Surely they can't win 4 in a row, right? Surely.
Are there any Chesterfield fans out there that have made rogue Instagram accounts dedicated to them winning a certain amount of games in a row? Is there going to be any nerves in the ground? I don't know. I think I guess one way of looking at it is they're having a good mini run, but the other is that they finally clicked into a bit of form. Probably with MK Dons, they were the ones that were talked about really at the start of the season, I think. And I know the top 20, I think, had them to win the league at the beginning of the year. And results recently would indicate that maybe they've hit a level that they've been expecting to hit all season, and that is quite concerning if you happen to be Cambridge United going away there at this moment in time. So, yes, it's a tricky one, but again, this sort of stuff will just get tedious for people listening to it, I suppose. But it's a League Two fixture. With the greatest respect, we shouldn't be going into any of these games particularly scared. I know Chesterfield are one of the better sides in League Two. We played them ourselves just a few weeks ago, and clearly there's been some improvements there. And obviously we heard about that, and you see it in the results. They're maybe a better team than they were when we played them at the Abbey. What was it, on the 9th? I think it was, of December.
But they were a bad team when they were here, mate.
Well, yeah,
they were not
like,
impressive, were they?
Like with respect, like how much difference can 20 days make? Without a transfer window and with a lot more time into the legs. Like for me, look, Chesterfield are a good side at this level. They are, but a good side at this level is one thing, and a good side is another thing entirely. And just to be clear, I would very much count ourselves in that as well. Like we're not the finished article by any means, but it's a League Two fixture, man. Like we've just seen ourselves be a much better side than Chesterfield at the Abbey. So why can't we go there and give it to them a little bit more? I would argue that this fixture might suit us a touch more than going to Gillingham would. Gillingham is just a test, like for any team, because they put balls in the box in your face. They're aggressive. Chesterfield will probably try to play more, I think. And I feel like sometimes our game is a bit more suited to that. We might come off and get football off the park and we might end up losing 3 or 4-0, right? And that's a very real possibility. But the flip side of that is we've seen ourselves be able to limit teams who play in that way pretty effectively in the last few weeks. So if we can go there and do that again, then that'll be a big step on the way to getting something out of it.
Well, Dave alluded to this in the interview, which I know you haven't had the chance to listen to, Tom, but he basically said that they do better against teams that go and try and attack them. So Barnet went there a couple of games ago, went for it, and found themselves, losing 3-1. So yeah, I get kind of sort of that, I don't know, Grimsby away kind of vibe to this game. Like this could be one, like you say, that benefits us. Neil Harris, after the Gillingham game, said this is going to be a different type of game. Chesterfield are going to want the ball. They're going to want possession. They're going to want to pass it around nicely. With an eye on the lineup, how would you like to see us try and combat that kind of style, that kind of opponent? And now's probably a good time to caveat this and say we're recording before any presser, so we don't know if anyone is or isn't available on Monday night.
Yeah, cheers for that. Otherwise, could have looked a little bit foolish. Yeah, I mean, look, I think it depends on the fitness of particularly Lavery. So I think we've looked better all season with 2 up front, and I'd like to think that's something we can maybe look at doing again here. To be honest, I don't think you changed too much. Like, I mean, I know we've just sat here and collectively kind of grilled the second half performance at Gillingham, but you don't want to kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater with these things, right? Like, you make maybe an odd change here and there, but I don't think you need to totally tear it up and go again because we've dropped a couple of points. Like we're a more than capable side, and obviously we've shown that in the last few weeks. And I think that keep it as much as possible the way it is, and just kind of go from there. Like, and there might be maybe 1 or 2 tired legs in there, so you have to judge that, and you have to maybe make changes in there. Maybe McLaughlin might come in, for example, for maybe someone like Hoddle, who's obviously played a lot more football than we might have expected. That's
the area of the pitch I was thinking. Yeah, that seems like the sort of obvious area to freshen it up or make a change is in centre mid.
Yeah, but other than that, probably not too much. I imagine that, like, sometimes the pendulum swings with these things, doesn't it? Like, you have a good result, it's like keep it the same. You have a bad result, you want to change it all completely. So I suppose maybe one of the things people might look at is the shape a little bit. I know we've looked better or looked better than I would have expected with 3 at the back, given it's or 5 at the back, or however you want to sort of look at it. I do think at some point we'll go back to 4. I'm not sure Tuesday will be the night for that, but I can see that coming at some point. So that's maybe one thing that might get spoken about. But I think we're pretty minimal changes, really. Can't think that we'll do too much there.
How do you see Monday night panning out, mate?
Tricky one.
Definitely.
God, it'd be nice to keep the unbeaten run going. I think if we can go there and get a point, then I think it really allow me to look at Gillingham a little bit more positively than what I've just done over the last hour or so. I think, I think if you come out of this and you've got 2 points from those 2 away games, I think you'd be pretty happy. It's a tough ask though. It's a tougher ask in Chesterfield than it is in Gillingham. I'll put it like that. So yeah, I'll go with a sort of semi-ambitious point. Let's go with another 1-1.
I see this one. I don't know. It's not a must not lose game, but I'm looking at it, and if they beat us, what's the gap then? 6-7 points between us and them? And I know obviously other results on Monday night could mean that we don't fall that far off, but from a psychology kind of perspective, I don't want us to be losing too much ground. It's going to be a much, much tougher game, like you say. I don't know. I still can't get my head around Cambridge United going on this unbeaten run. 12 is amazing. So I think it's going to be unlucky 13. I reckon we might lose, but it'll be a close game. Maybe the 1 goal in it. Maybe 2-1 to Chesterfield. Sorry,
and
Tom.
Christmas cheer firmly behind you, is it, Jord?
Absolutely, mate. But if it makes you feel any better, there's a big Tesco with a good Greggs in it that you can go to pre-game, Tom. There you are.
You know what will make me feel even better, Jord?
A skepasti?
A skepasti.
A skepasti. Where could we find one of those, Tomo?
I don't know, but I'm sure you're about to tell me.
Get yourself down to number 1 Ferry Path, Cambridge, CB4 1HB. Our sponsors and partners this season, the Old Spring. There you go. You thought we'd forgotten, hadn't you? Absolutely not. Right. We've
Did we
covered
get, did we get any intel on how Julian's meal went there over Christmas? 'Cause I know he's planning on going there. Do we know if he got
didn't respond,
skepasti?
mate. I was texting him all afternoon. He didn't respond.
Hmm.
Not one picture, nothing.
Okay.
Is he on the next pod? We've got another pod coming up soon. Got on my notes to
Well, I
talk
dunno.
about.
I know for a fact he'll be at Chesterfield, so I'll finish the interrogation there, shall I?
Do it. Quick bit of admin before we leave. There's a very good end of the year quiz available. It's that time of the year, isn't it, to wrap up the last 12 months. No spoilers, but did you enjoy the quiz, Tom?
I enjoyed it. Tinged with disappointment for reasons that people that listen to it will become clear fairly quickly. But yeah, I think it's a relatively good. Well, it's a good listen. Sorry, I should be selling it more. It's a good listen. Go and listen to it. It's great. Yeah, the annual Christmas quiz is becoming a thing of tradition. Yeah, it's great.
Right. There will be another pod after the Chesterfield game where we're going to preview both the Walsall and the Grimsby double header at home. That will be me and Caspel. That will be fun. I will see you then. Tomo, see you in the new year, mate.
Yeah, we will do. Looking forward to it.
2026, the year we go marching on up in the top 3, right?
One World Cup and one promotion. Can't wait.